How do you beat sugar addiction? I get this question so often, gang. I thought I'd spend a few minutes talking to you just to walk you through the whole process, or at least part of the process, at least the beginning of the process. I seem to find that I am much better answering questions. So if you have any questions, please put them below and I'll happily answer them. But one of the main questions is that how do you beat sugar addiction? People, they start and then they have these massive cravings. There is an actual detox process in sugar addiction. And you want to think nicotine here, gang, not heroin or alcohol. It's annoying, it's gnarly, but it's not that bad. You can live through it. It's those first 5 to 7 days, sometimes 10. And if you have a real heavy habit, it could last up to 20 or 30 days. If you're a lot overweight and you've never really spent any time at all sugar-free, if you go sugar-free, you're going to have some withdrawals. And it's categorized by lethargy, depression. Actually, you're kind of blue. You're not mentally depressed, you're physically depressed because your dopamine receptors in your brain have been downregulated by the sugar abuse, and you have less of them. They're thinned out, and so you don't feel as good. There's this term called anhedonia. Anhedonia is a feeling of not being able to feel joy. It's kind of flat feeling, and that comes on you when you start with the sugar withdrawals. During your sugar detox. Now, you're also going to be starving. You're going to be really hungry to eat something to fill this stomach up. And one of the things I want to really emphasize is that reaction is not actually hunger. That is actually a withdrawal symptom that is, it's literally the growling stomach, this vapid emptiness in your stomach. That is literally a withdrawal symptom of sugar addiction. Okay. What else? Irritability. You're so irritable. You don't want to talk to, you don't even like yourself, but you're kind of angry at the world. You're just got to sleep all the time, or your sleep is interrupted in weird ways. You're going to find you sleep less, end up sleeping a little less when you get to the other side. But so the first step is the withdrawals, okay? And in the first 30 days or so, it is really about the food, okay? There is some, obviously 80, well, not obviously to anyone, but maybe if you didn't know this, 80% of the food products in the grocery store contain added sugar for sweetness, to draw you back, and for preservatives. But that's even that's outside of the blatant candies and cookies and all that kind of stuff. It's just regular food in bags and boxes contains this amount of sugar. And so almost everyone in the society is going to have some withdrawal periods when they go abstinent, no sugar. Now, here's the big part of this, and I don't want to scare you off, but to try and do this, you got to try and think about flour as well, okay? So flour turns to sugar right in your stomach. Now, when that happens, you're going to start the cravings all over again, okay? So here's what we ask you to do. We ask you to go 30, 60, and preferably 90 days with no sugar, no flour, zero, no pasta, no bread, just to see what happens, okay? Now, I want to stress that this sounds almost impossible, but we have thousands, tens of thousands now of people who have gone through this process, who got out the other side, who've lost the weight that they wanted to lose. Their face is cleared up, their anxieties have cleared up. A lot of things nowadays, especially nowadays, the brain is so involved in this. They're calling diabetes or Alzheimer's, they're calling Alzheimer's diabetes 3. Okay, which is crazy to understand. Just as we record this, a study just came out that 3 really famous doctors have gotten together and postulated this idea that sugar, fructose, causes Alzheimer's, right? Now, they have a lot of proof and a lot of evidence, but and it got published in a very prestigious peer-reviewed journal, and they're continuing to gather information. But here's the important part, and I tell folks about this all the time, is the sugar molecule is half glucose and half fructose, right? And we all know what the sugar molecule of the half of the molecule, the glucose part, is doing to our bodies, causing diabetes, obesity, weight gain, heart disease, cancer. Some people say it's just, there's a lot of studies about that now. But is less known is that the other half of the molecule, the fructose part, is acting on the brain. Okay, this is where the study came from. They didn't say that sugar causes Alzheimer's. They said that fructose causes it. Okay, so fructose, like I said, is the thing if you really want to get off of sugar, you should study fructose, because fructose, or fructose, they have a couple different ways to pronounce it. Fructose is so important in this process. And over the years, over a decade of helping people, in case you don't know, Mike Collins, the Sugar-Free Man, over a decade of helping people do this at sugaraddiction.com, the first website on the internet about addiction. What we've come to know is that the $78 billion diet industry has trained us, literally brainwashed us. That's 78 billion a year, gang. Trained us to believe that we need a weight plan, a food plan, like a reduction plan, 1,000 calories, 500 calories, and an exercise plan. Everybody that comes to me wants to know what to eat. And I want to emphasize in such important detail that I want to stress this. It's like I want to reach through and grab you and shake you and help you understand that, yes, at the beginning, you've got to get through withdrawals. You've got to eat the right whole food. Now, it can be vegetarian, vegan, all the way to keto and carnivore, as long as it's whole food. As long as it's never been reduced to a white powder, gang, you're going to be okay in your evolution, your change. But, and this is a huge but, and where the whole thing turns, everything revolves around this one statement, this one concept that I'm going to deliver to you right now. So please, if you got a pen, please write this down, okay? The key to getting off sugar is understanding that your emotions, your emotional management system, has been compromised by a drug that is powerful enough to soothe your emotions, to make you feel a little bit better for a few minutes. And let me tell you how it evolved, gang. What happened was, back when you were a child, probably in the womb, but definitely in, by the time you were a baby or 1 or 2, you were rewarded for positive things, and negative things were happening. You got a cookie or ice cream or whatever. And what happened, your parents were busy, they had a job, other kids, whatever. And when you were upset, angry, worried, frustrated, hurt, scared, they would give you a cookie and send you to the television, right? Because they knew that that cookie would satiate you for just a little bit, okay? Hell, the product that they give kids, babies, for male babies, for circumcision, is just really a little taste. It's called Sweeties. It's a little taste of sugar, and that anesthetizes the baby enough to do the operation. Can you imagine that? Well, just think, as this moves forward, where you're getting this sugar, you got this little body, and you're getting this big bowl of ice cream or whatever, or all these cookies, and you're literally being drugged. And more than being drugged just to feel a little bit better. I mean, we've all seen what happens when the cake and ice cream comes out at a birthday party. It's like the whole atmosphere changes. And what is happening is, you're learning that if you're sad, sugar. If your emotions are in flux, sugar. Upset, worried, scared, sugar, right? And this continues to progress over your life into this learning pattern. but it's unconscious at this point because sugar is so easy to obtain. Even a child can score it. Yes, a decidedly druggy term, but you can score sugar anytime pretty much during the day. It's very inexpensive. You can just get a soda or whatever. And so we don't realize, we think it's our life that we're ingesting a little bit of soda or a little bit of thing just to kind of take the edge off. A lot of times it happens around 4 o'clock because we had a sugary breakfast. We had, at least some kind of sugar or bread or something at lunch. And now it's kind of, the body's slowing down a little bit and we have a little more, and then we go in and everybody has the same struggle in the evening, the early evening after dinner. But anyway, the progression is very natural and everyone ascribes it to their normal life, right? They think this is their normal life. When in reality, it's truly just an unconscious effort to not go into withdrawals. Write that part down. It's an unconscious effort not to be irritable. Start with the headaches. I forgot to mention that as a detox symptom. Really pretty severe headaches. One of the beauties of the things that we've found is that headaches, migraines, almost completely go away after people give up sugar and flour. 95% of the time, all migraines, all headaches go. I haven't had a headache in 30 years. And I used to get terrible headaches from sugar and alcohol and that kind of stuff. So no more headaches. And I want to keep going with this emotional management idea. I want you to understand that when you talk with someone who's actually done this, someone that's 200, 300, 400 pounds overweight, losing limbs, was diagnosed with diabetes 2 or losing limbs, and they finally turn it all around and get off the sugar and flour, and they're in recovery from sugar addiction, those folks do not talk about the food that they ate or the exercise that they did. What they talk about is what we're talking about here now, which is that emotional management system has had to be redone, reconfigured. Like you're literally learning how to walk again. You have to learn that when you think of sugar, you go to yoga, you go for a walk, you get a hug, you get a manicure, you get a pedicure, you get a massage. You have to learn new self-soothing tools that will guide you to manage your emotions differently. Look, gang, it's a very common and well-known construct in the world of alcohol and drug recovery that if you started using alcohol and drugs at 14 or 15, you stopped growing emotionally. So think about it. The person's life's a mess, their career's a mess, their finances are a mess, their job, everything is a mess in their life because at 14 or 15, when things were a problem, they would use drugs or alcohol, and then the problem was still there the next day, and they just never solved it. Okay, now they're 30, 40, 50 years old, and they're trying to get well, and they just don't have this emotional regulation that's just backwards. So this is very well known. What is less well known is the exact same thing happens with that person that I described who's lost 200 or 300 pounds, fall into a right-sized body for them, and then they start to discuss it with other people. What they talk about is this emotional reconfiguring, this emotional management system redoing. So now they do go for a walk, they do go to yoga, they do call a friend, they do get a manicure, they do something that is self-soothing for them instead of using a substance, okay? We call it effort-based dopamine versus substance-based dopamine. Now, when I use the word dopamine, gang, I want you to think all of the whole constellation of all kinds of brain reward chemical drugs, serotonin, norepinephrine, GABA, adrenal glands, endorphins, oxytocin, the big one, the bonding chemical where, you bond as a family, or when the baby is put on the mother's chest. This is oxytocin. All of these things are affected, cannabinoid receptors in your body and brain. All of these are affected by sugar and flour, mostly sugar and fructose, but sugar and and bread and pasta and flour has the heavy glucose component, okay? So all of these things are affected. So when I use the term dopamine, please think about all of them. But what has happened is your dopamine receptors have been downregulated, they've been thinned out, you have less of them. And so you're in a state where you're trying to recreate just that peace, that calm, that 20 minutes of feeling okay, instead of, and not go into withdrawals during your adult life. You know, most people are busy, they've got a job, they're you know, they got kids, whatever. They don't have time to do what we just discussed earlier, which is those, you know, 10, 20, 30 days of detox where they're irritable and grouchy and, you know, whatever, they're hungry, got a headache. They don't have time to do that. So the unconscious ingestion of sugar keeps that at bay for a little bit. And anyone, most of the people that are probably listening to this have probably tried this, right? And where you turn back, this is the important factor in all this, okay? Where you stopped, okay? So maybe you got whatever, 5 days, 10 days, but you know, you just could, the cravings were too much, right? Now, there's another part of this puzzle, which you all probably know a little bit about, but it's disguised, okay? Let me describe the disguise. So 95% of people who lose any amount of weight gain it all back in the first year, right? And they gain it all back for this reason. Now, think about this in context with what we've just discussed here today. So say your life's going okay at this time. Emotionally, you're solid. Your relationship's solid. Your job's solid. Your finances are solid. The kids are good. Everybody's good, right? Well, then you go ahead and you lose 40 pounds. Now, how did you lose 40 pounds? It wasn't from exercise and it wasn't from calorie restriction. What it was from is that what 98% of all diets say, which is reduce the white stuff. You've cut back on sugar and flour, pasta and bread and potatoes and rice. You cut back on the white stuff, right? But your life was doing okay. You didn't have any emotional upheaval or upset, right? But when something comes up, a bad meeting, a bad boss, a bad spouse, a kid, school, work, anything that comes up that rocks your world a little bit, starts to, you know, upset you a little bit, unconsciously, you fall back to the thing that worked since you were a kid, since you were a baby, which is modifying how you feel, that effort, that substance-based dopamine instead of that effort-based dopamine. You fall back to that. Now, here's the rub of all this, the crazy part about this. This system that I've described with all of these brain reward chemicals took, 300,000 years at least, probably closer to 1 million or 2, depending on who you listen to, years to evolve so that we could find food and sex and procreate the species, so we could continue to be, to survive, right? And we have learned through, and this is the part that no one ascribes power to. They don't ascribe how powerful this is, that we learned how to hack that dopamine system by sitting on the couch and eating sugar products, okay? We learned how to hack a reward system that evolved over millennia to help keep our species alive, to reward us for finding food, to reward us for finding, those little nasty berries or those little crab apples or whatever. This system evolved that way, and now we've figured out a way to hack it with a drug, with a powdered substance, something that's been reduced to a white powder. We learned to hack it by just sitting on the couch or eating or drinking a sugar-sweetened beverage, okay? If what I've discussed through this process resonates with you, if you even if it's not quite clear, I'll be happy to answer any questions about it. I'm much better answering questions, and we're going to have more ask me anything kind of things. If you're interested, if you're super interested, if you really want to put this to the test, Join one of our 30-day challenges. You can find it at Sugar Addiction. There's probably a link down there, sugaraddiction.com. You can Google me, Mike Collins, or you can Google the Sugar-Free Man, Sugar Addiction, Sugar Detox. We come up over everything. Just put my name with it. Mike Collins, Sugar Addiction. So I really want to make sure that you know why, how to beat sugar addiction, and B, why you need to. This one doesn't cover all of the physical maladies and all the things that kind of manifest over 20 or 30 years, the high blood pressure, the heart disease, the diabetes too, the Alzheimer, all these kind of things. But hopefully has given you a glimpse into exactly how to beat sugar addiction, because it's super important and we really want to get that message out. Please leave a comment, subscribe. We'd love to hear from you. Take care for now. Mike, the Sugar-Free Man, signing out. Talk to you real soon, guys. Bye for now.